Welcome to The Journalist. The Israeli army is once again on the offensive in the Gaza Strip to completely destroy the Hamas terrorist organization. As we look at what is happening in the region today, we see that the IDF has severely cornered Hamas with its dual ground offensive operations. This process of pressure in the northern and southern Gaza areas is causing a great deal of discord and disconnection within the terrorist organization, as well as a loss of faith in the war. Israel is feeling this pressure first in northern Gaza. Over the last few days, Hamas began to vacate the northern flank of the Strip as IDF forces launched a ground offensive in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. Recognizing this deficit, the IDF has embarked on a strategy of increasing its troops in Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and the Atatra Strip, and has moved forces that were already advancing into Gaza to support Jabalia. There were already a number of IDF military units in Jabalia, which have so far captured several terror camps and eliminated hundreds of Hamas terror members. With the arrival of additional Israeli military units in Jabalia, the end is in sight for Hamas. The latest situation reports from the area indicate that Hamas terror members are cornered and are desperately trying to return fire. Most recently, the IDF even released footage from the body camera of a Hamas gunman during the clashes in Jabalia, showing armed members of the terror group crawling inside a building while trying to target an Israeli position. Soldiers of the Nahal Brigade carried out a massive operation against the building where these terror members were located, and hundreds of armed terror militants were eliminated, including the Hamas terror member carrying the body camera. Hamas had already lost a major missile production facility in this area. If you remember, this was the largest weapons and missile production facility for Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Now, after the Nahal Brigade raided and eliminated the remaining terrorist members, the Jabalia settlement has become the last stop for Hamas. This has started the process of armed members of the terrorist organization surrendering to the IDF. This stunning news was one of the most shocking headlines of the day. Although the news was characterized as allegations, the latest breaking details from Jabalia were backed up by concrete images and data proving these allegations. First of all, the IDF announced that more than 120 members of the Hamas terrorist organization laid down their weapons in Jabalia to surrender, i.e., waving the white flag. The shocking footage showed that indeed Hamas terrorists surrendered in Jabalia because they had no other choice. As we told you, in Jabalia, the IDF had captured Hamas's most important defense strongholds, weapons and missile production facilities, and defense lines. The final blow was dealt by the soldiers of the Nahal Brigade, who captured one of Hamas's main headquarters. The logical step for Hamas terror members was therefore, of course, to surrender. The footage shared by the Israel Defense Forces showed dozens of Hamas terror members gathered in Gaza being captured after surrendering to IDF soldiers during the Israeli military operation in the area. Over time, however, breaking news from the region revealed that the number of Hamas terror members who surrendered has changed. According to the latest data, the number of Hamas terror members who surrendered to the IDF in Jabalia was reported to be more than 200. The surrender of so many terrorists shows how shaky the internal structure of Hamas is, and the process was moving so fast that it was as if the terrorists wanted to get out of Jabalia as soon as possible. So the IDF was also speeding up the process, arresting armed attackers who no longer wanted to carry out terrorist activities for Hamas and sending them to Israel for interrogation. One of the videos showed a group being transported in the back of Israeli military vehicles. In response to a question at the evening briefing, IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari confirmed that these terrorists had surrendered to the army. Daniel Hagari also said that whoever was left in those areas came out of the tunnels and some came out of buildings to surrender. Hagari added that they are investigating whether these people are linked to Hamas and that they have arrested and interrogated all of them. The vast majority of the civilian population had fled the north of the Strip weeks earlier, when Israel warned residents to move south while focusing its ground offensive on the north. Those arrested were terror members who had given up fighting and surrendered to Israel because they no longer had a choice. But as the IDF continues its ground offensive in the south of Gaza, Hamas is cornered there as well. For its part, the IDF will fully activate the Kerem Shalom crossing for residents of the southern region in the coming days. After the complete evacuation of civilians from the area, IDF forces, which have already entered Khan Yunis, are likely to carry out extensive ground offensives in other settlements in southern Gaza. The fact that IDF main battle tanks and troops are already in Khan Yunis and have breached the main defensive lines in the enclave indicates that things have completely changed in southern Gaza, which is considered the second main stronghold of Hamas. The IDF's goal here is to destroy the terrorist organization in the southern part of the Strip following northern Gaza. In doing so, Israel is also considering the evacuation of civilians from this area, as we mentioned. But in order to undermine these efforts, Hamas has recently launched bomb attacks on Israel from the southern Gaza direction. These attacks affected southern Israeli cities. A total of 12 rockets were reportedly fired. In fact, one of the rockets fired by Hamas hit Gaza due to mistargeting. Following these terrorist activities, Israel entered Khan Yunis and began to gradually destroy the terrorist sources there. Hamas's top terrorist leader, Yahya Sinwar, is currently believed to be in Khan Yunis and other settlements in southern Gaza, as well as its so-called commanders. Sinwar's current headquarters is allegedly located and monitored by the IDF. So, according to this data, one of Hamas's top terrorist leaders is being held by the IDF. It is also estimated that hostages were transferred to this settlement with Hamas terror leaders. This is why the IDF needs to follow up its successful operations in the north of Gaza with very careful and subtle operations in the south of the Strip. The hostage issue is one of the most important and pressing problems not only for Israel, but also for the United States. U.S. President Joe Biden has expressed deep concern about the hostages still held in Gaza, telling Netanyahu that last week's humanitarian standstill was caused by Hamas's refusal to release young female civilian hostages. Israeli and U.S. officials believe that Hamas continues to hold hostage a number of women between the ages of about 20 and 30. Most of them were kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival. The United States has emphasized its unwavering support for Israel to free those held hostage by Hamas. And Israel is moving step by step closer to victory, both in rescuing the hostages and in evacuating the residents of southern Gaza and ending the Hamas terrorist organization there as well. But how long will this process continue? And when will the IDF forces complete their ground offensive in southern Gaza? U.S. officials are making important assessments on this issue. According to senior U.S. officials, the Israeli army may continue its ground offensive operations in southern Gaza until January. Some of these officials even predict that the ground offensive operations in southern Gaza may end even before 2024. However, more precise information on this issue will become clearer in the coming days with the next steps from Israel. And given that the Hamas terrorist organization is already splintering and surrendering to the IDF, it would not be surprising if the predictions of senior U.S. officials are correct. Thank you for following us.